Hi again, Brute for ICU Gaming here to bring you episode 2 of the basic guide on transforming your guild from PvX to World v World. If you managed to endure my voice for the last episode in the full 40 minutes, you will now be part of a basic course set up within your guild. If you're a smaller PvX guild like our own, it'll look a little like this. So in this film we'll be putting it all together in the stages of combat. I'm going to be explaining pre-fight buffs, engagement buffs, the sequences involved and the rotations between the players that you're going to want to set up in communication. So let's get started. Okay, pre-raid buffs or stack building as it's commonly referred to. Prior to every raid, these highly organised guilds will go out individually or in groups and build up 3 separate types of buffs. Any small advantage they can get they will use, and it's advisable that everyone else does the same. If you've ever seen these high-end guys out farming drakes or minotaurs or coyotes, and you're wondering if they're farming materials, they're not. They are building up their stacks. As I said, there are 3 variations. The first one we're going to look at is weapon stacking. So, for the sake of discussion, we are going to look at the Sigilly Bloodlust. There are variations to this. Rather than power, you can buff your precision, your healing power, your toughness, your condition damage. But the Bloodlust seems to be the most popular one. Power is an excellent stat, and it's also the most expensive on the trade post, which is a good signal that is widely sought after. So by reading this, you'll see gain 10 power each time you kill a foe to a maximum of 25 stacks. You can gain an extra 250 power on your character, and that persists until you hit a down state once you get downed in combat. Now, this here, when you multiply that for the sake of discussion again, over our build, a 15-man squad, you are increasing the build power by 3,750. That's like having roughly 2 extra people attacking within your group, and they are very easy to build up. The first thing you would do is you get your weapon, and it also works. You can double stack. If you have 2 weapons with the same sigil on it, each time you make a kill you will actually receive 2 stacks. So it's as simple as equip these weapons, go out, find some mobs, and then just spin to win and just kill whatever you can. Just take them down, and once you make the kills you'll just see the stacks appearing down here up to the total of 25. Okay, so every member in your guild should do that prior to any kind of raid, and if they get downed and lose them, you can equip those weapons and just build up slowly again out with the generic combat. The next type of pre-raid buff that you'll be looking to obtain prior to your raid are known as guard stacks. Fortunately, these can be accumulated at the same time as you build your weapon stacks by simply visiting a local enemy tower or a supply camp, and you only need to kill 5 guards in total to get both of these fully stocked. Unfortunately, it is gated by world XP, so you need to be 230 or above or 115 to get either or. So we'll have a quick look at the advantages of having both of these prior to raid also. So you see here, the first one, Applied Fortitude, Defense Against Guards. It's recommended this is the first one you build up to. Your first 115 World XP ranks should be looking at gaining this buff. So, for each stack of Applied Fortitude, you get 50 Vitality to a maximum of 5 stacks. As we said, you only need to kill 5 guards and you will get both of these. Okay, so that is an extra 2,500 HP for your character alone. If you take our build as an example, our guild of about 15 men, you are increasing the overall hit points by 37,500. That's how much extra damage your group can absorb while in World v World if everyone runs Applied Fortitude. Guard Leech, this one would be secondary. You would always go for the hit points first. you can maximise 5 stacks, each giving you additional 20 power and condition damage. So an extra 100 power and condition damage per character over your 15. It's an extra 1500 to both of those stats over your guild build. So you want both of these. This is what you should be aiming for with your World v World XP and ranks. People will tell you you should go for things like Ram Mastery or Supply Master, which is great if you are used to running in a Zerg. If you want to switch to the more coordinated guild raiding, you want to have a better fighting chance when it comes to going head to head with these other groups, you want every single advantage. So these two should be your priority trees: Guard Killer and Defense Against Guards. The final part of your preparation pre-raid will be obtaining foods from the trade post or making them yourself through the chef mastery. There are two foods that will run simultaneously. One will be a crystal, oil or a sharpening stone, and the other one will be a food made by the chef. There are two variations which seem to be run quite consistently throughout depending on the situation, so we'll have a wee look at those now. Okay, so the first one, you have a selection of, as we discussed, the sharpening stone, the maintenance oils, or the tuning crystals. These are the most commonly used. It's all about that power stat again. If you followed the advice in episode 1, you will have a fairly tanky spec. You will have high toughness, you will have high vitality. So reading this here, you will gain power equal to 6% of your toughness, and you will gain power equal to 4% of your vitality. Now, it's impossible to calculate across your guild build until you know every single person's individual statistics. It will be a lot, it will be a big increase, a big advantage to have. And the second one, a food, you would have a choice of either of these. One that is commonly used in places like Eternal Battlegrounds, where you are more likely to be up against disorganised foes, you're likely to get a lot of kills. They would use an Om Nom Berry Compote. What this does, every time you see that yellow XP arising from a kill, you will also get a heal. And this is how they keep their HP bars topped up. The 70 in healing, not such a great benefit. I guess it's okay for the heal support guardians. The main one and the most expensive one when you look on the trade post, if you're facing another organised group, a high-end organised guild, they are going to be locking you down with conditions. They're going to keep you away, you're crippled, all the stuff you really don't want on you. So 40% condition duration reduction, that's the highest you can get through a food. Plus the 70 vitality is an extra 700 HP, which will then give you a wee bit of benefit on your stone, oil or tuning crystal. No organised player goes out into World v World without two of these. Okay, it just doesn't happen. You should invest in them, get a bulk set buy, and make sure you always have foods, oblique nourishments on your character. So that's you. You now have a guild build. You have all your buffs in place. You are ready to go out on your raid and get some sequences in combat, which we're going to discuss in the next segment. The first stage of the combat sequence is the pre-engagement buff. The goal being to maximise that initial impact, to down as many as possible and create a shock and awe effect on your opponents. The success of this comes down to the speed of the buff and the positioning that the commander chooses. Realistically, you'll have a 5-6 second window to prepare for the head-to-head clash. Organised opponents will do the same thing, and it becomes a race for the first huge impact to get that initial hit and down as many as you possibly can. Against Pug type Zergs, loads of them will simply run in unbuffed, loose formation, quite similar to barbarians charging Roman formations, if you will. You'll have a huge advantage in that situation, although numbers can always prevail, as I'm sure everyone knows. So this is how it works. Okay, so you're out in the field and you're following your commander very closely, I must add. Everybody in the guild must be situationally aware. If your mind is elsewhere and you suddenly come around a corner and you realise that the enemy's erg or force is just in front of you, you have very little time to prepare. Everyone must be ready to go. So the whole premise of the pre-engagement buff is around the might buff. Now, what might does, it each stack gives you 35 power and 35 condition damage. Now, you are trying to obtain 25 stacks per person in your group. Okay, so if you have designed your groups similar to discussed in episode 1, you have 2 guardians and 2 warriors in your melee groups. Through the skill on staff 4, which is empower, each guardian can buff their group with 12 stacks of might for between 10 and 13 seconds. So that is your window. You will come round a corner or you will see the opponent. You must get into a position that is out of range, although a gap that you can close within that 10 to 13 seconds, and they will most likely do the same as discussed. And what you're trying to do is get your 25 stacks up. Now the numbers there are ridiculous if you can achieve this. If you are putting 35 per might, you can get 25 stacks on each character. That is an additional 875 power and condition damage per character. On a 15-man build, as we're discussing here, that is 13,125 power. That's like having 5 or 6 extra players on that initial hit. So what you're doing to achieve this, Guardians, which would be your commander most likely, although there are some warrior commanders, those are the 2 best classes for it. They will both come into their own here when it comes to the group buffing, and that's all down to the staff 4. So if you are running the buff support build, as discussed in episode 1, which runs the hammer and the staff, your role will be to come around and the commander will use terminology along the lines of combat buff, and we're moving in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now those 5 seconds are the time you have to hit your 4, empower. The healing guardian with the great sword will do exactly the same. You see that's 12, so the 2 of them will multiply that up to 24 for both the warriors in the group and both the guardians. And this is where the 4-man groups come into their own. All leftover might stacks will go to someone in a different party. So you're making sure that you're topping up other groups as well as your own. And in the next section I'm just going to show you quickly how the warriors and elementalists combine to top those off and maximise. As an elementalist, you will most likely be in air attunement while you're on the move. It is your responsibility to be completely aware and ready for your commander calling for this pre-engagement buff to go off. So as soon as he does that, you need to switch into your fire attunement and put your fire field down on top of them. Now hopefully you have the 2 or 3 elementalists as discussed, and all 3 of them are quick enough to throw down these fire fields. Okay, and the reason for that is the combo field, the fire combo field from Lava Font. When a blast finisher is used, that creates might, a group AoE might. That is what is topping off the empower. So on top of the guardians using their staff to get their group up to 24, the Ellie is contributing with their fire fields. You want as many fire fields down on the pre-engagement buff as possible. As a warrior, your job is simple. All the fire fields for the Ellies and any other classes that may have been able to contribute have been put down around you and your commander. You are using your Warhorn 5, your blast finisher. If you have thieves, any other classes that have a disposable blast that's not going to inhibit them in combat, throw those in as well. So the fire fields go down, you blast, and that's your job. You're ready to go into combat and follow the commander. Must have your blast ready. And back to the buff support guardian, as you have more responsibility here than anyone else. So as the fire fields are down, you are still ending your empower. You must immediately switch, use your blast finisher, which is Mighty Blow on your hammer 2. You catch the end of the fire field, these are then heading off, and in World War I terminology, that's used over the top, heading towards an uncertain future. Just before everything goes down in front of you, or the control effects from the enemy, it is also your responsibility to put the first stability up. So just before you reach it, stability goes up from both buff support guardians, and that minimises anyone getting caught with stuns. It is also a good idea for the commander to make some kind of jinking movement. Bearing in mind you do only have that 10 to 13 seconds to get your first hit in, so if you must run through everything they've put down, so be it. Try to avoid it. Running straight to force them to put theirs down, and then out to the side, and then engage on their perimeter. And this is where the engagement phase begins. As the engagement phase begins, it's always nice to add a wee bit of deception in there if you have the luxury of a mesmer in your build. Using Veil, one of their utility skills, which is a 2-second stealth, you're invisible to foes. People tend to use this far too early. It is only a 2-second stealth. If you use it as soon as you have buffed, they're just going to see where you're coming from anyway, so it should be used just before they engage, really. The mesmer must have the foresight to be able to judge which direction the commander's going in, so it would be a case of dropping your veil roughly halfway, allowing them to run through it, and they can change direction if they need to, if there's a lot of stuff down in front of them from the enemy. But one of the main focuses of the mesmer is for null fields, and I'll elaborate on this with the necro as well. One big bonus on creating a kill zone is boon stripping. If they are organised like you, they will also have stability up. You want to try and get rid of that so that you can lock them down and create an area where you down as many people as possible. So null field, create a field energy that rips all boons from foes and cures all conditions on allies, so it's supportive and offensive. You want to be judging where your commander is going to take the melee train. For instance, on the side, it's always a good idea for a commander to avoid charging straight into the middle, then you're going to pick up everything. So if you can hit on one of the sides, you want to be dropping your null field just on where he's going to make impact. And as you see there, that pulses and that's stripping boons. So that's what the mesmer brings to the party on the initial engagement. If you have the 3 elementalists that we advised in episode 1, they will all be in fire just prior to the clash of melee balls. They want to be switching into separate attunements. You want to have a rotation set up, so one can stay in fire and add in some damage. Just get their skills in there, additional damage on the area that your commander has hit. One of them, this one needs to be the fastest, should be in air. The static field is one of the main control effects for creating a kill zone. An absolute nightmare for anybody that gets caught in that. If they're loosely organised and they do not have stability up, they are stunned for 2 seconds. So that would be placed in there, and anything entering that zone or trying to exit it will be stunned for 2 seconds, and they're trapped. They're going to be soaking up a big amount of the damage. Okay, and the third one you probably want to have in earth. Okay, so with that you've got skills like shockwave, there's immobilize, more bleeding in there. You also have the block on your 4, unsteady ground, so if you can get into a position where you can throw that in behind them, that stops any kind of running away. You're blocking off one direction for them trying to get out of your kill zone. As the buff support guardian, just as you reach the engagement point, you want to be using your skill 3, which is your Zealot's Embrace. Again, it's all about locking people down in the kill zone. So you're opening up with your Zealot's Embrace. That's a line. Those people are immobilized, they can't move. You are then locking them in with your skill 5, and then you can start doing your damage with your blasts. Blasts are really nice in combat. There's going to be fields down there, so you're going to be getting passive effects from them. Is the heal support Guardian just off the back of the pre-engagement buff? You're still going to be in your staff. You want to open up with your line of Warden, which is an impassable line for anybody that does not have stability. If you can coordinate this with the other Guardian, as in one goes left, one goes right, so you put a block down on the right, the other one goes left, and the Ellie, for instance, could have taken the back. They have the additional range there. You have now created a box around your kill zone. If they do not have stability, they are trapped in there, and they cannot get away from all the damage. So as you're moving in, if you have time, you can place in your bit AoE, your Symbol of Swiftness there, which is also a light field, so any blasts going down will create area of retaliation. So you can throw that in there as well. If you don't have enough time, if the gap's too close, you just switch straight to sword. You use your skill 3, okay? Now you must leap towards your commander. Don't end up leaping half a mile away and you're at the wrong side of the fight, and then you're soaking up all the damage on your own. You must be good with this. If you're not, don't use it. If you're not confident in getting the right target, just ignore that. It's just additional damage mitigation with the blind on the first hit. Means they're going to miss the next attack. So as soon as you have hit in, you are opening up with your skill 5, okay, which is a pull. So you just use it twice quickly, you pull everyone into you, and then you use your Whirling Wrath, which is your big AoE damage on the sword. Then you start dropping the rest of your skills and just doing your damage on the spot until the commander moves. If you start to take a lot of damage, you want to have your rotation set for your elite skill, okay? So you double dodge roll back, get out there, you'll get some nice heals for that. Activate your elite and just start spamming your 1 on the commander and the melee bot to bring them back up, and as soon as that's done, you're just leaping back into position, and your rotation should be ready again, so just pulling it. Okay, so that's the heal Guardian, that's their role on the engagement. The warriors should be extremely tight to the commander. Your characters should be practically overlapping as you engage, and how you want to open is with your 2 skill. You can use this right next to them, and the maximum effect there is getting the cripple on multiple targets. So you've got 50% movement speed, again all about locking them down. So right next to them where the commander has engaged, you are leaping in, you're crippling, as you're damaging. If anybody is below 50, even if not, your final thrust in, and you see how quickly the adrenaline went up, you're switching right to hammer, and it's more control effect. So your 3 skill, your hammer shock, an AoE cripple, okay, more cripple in there. You've got a knockdown to put them down for 2 seconds, but the main one is your earth shaker. If you have a rotation set up, you can actually chain 3-4 of these in a row. The enemy, if the static from the Ellie has been good, they will already have burned their Stunbreaker. So this is going to catch them. If the stability has been ripped and they've used their Stunbreaker, Earthshaker is the killer. So size of the area effect, all of those people stunned, they cannot do anything about that. As soon as it clears, the next one goes in, then the next one, and they are completely trapped in the kill zone area that you have created. All the while, you're using all the passive effects we discussed in episode 1, be that clearing conditions from your Warhorn, you're using your shouts to get fury, additional might on there, you're clearing conditions, you're healing, and if unfortunately someone possibly gets downed, all you're doing is setting up that banner rotation, so you're falling back out, and it's a case of banner 1, you are dropping your banner in there if you can actually get it in range, and that is everybody that's in a down state but not yet finished back up. The warrior also comes into heavy play in the 3rd and final phase, which is the heal regroup. So we'll go on to the necromancer next, and that will top off the damage. The final piece of your kill zone jigsaw is the necromancer. So what they're going to be doing as they move about in the back line is just throwing in their marks, putting the addition pressure and the direct damage pressure in there. Your skill 2, which is a regen, you're also assisting on your melee by healing them up a bit while you put the bleeding down. You're putting chilled and poison, so the chill's the extra control effect, the slow, and you've got straight damage on Putrid Mark and the 1 second fear on Reaper's Mark. 1 second fear, people may be thinking, oh, but they might flee the kill zone. It is only 1 second. They won't get far, and if anything, it's just going to create further panic. They've lost control of their character. So once your raid lead has created a successful kill zone, you have locked people in, the blocks are up, the class leader for the Necro will assess the situation and call a spike. Now the first thing you're going to do in the well spike is drop your Well of Corruption. This is similar to the null field that the Mesmer has. It's a skill that strips back the enemy's defences, their boons. That's what you want to be targeting. So it's a pulse, you're using 3 of them. The boons they have that are keeping them up, protection, regen, stability, that's what you're hoping to get rid of here. So you're dropping these, the raid leader would lock them in, and the class leader for Necro would assign the spike in 3, 2, 1. So you're dropping your strip, you're dropping your big damage, and you're dropping your blind, which also synergizes through that trait we discussed in episode 1. So there's extra chill in there as well. Anybody that was low will probably be downed. Anybody that was downed will most likely now be finished. It is huge damage. You'll see when you multiply it by the 3. If you can get more Necros than 3, then absolutely great. Out with the Well Spike, while you're on recharge on those, you will take it in turns to use your elite skill. Very similar to the Warrior and the Guardian using their banners and books. You will assign Necro 1, 2 and 3. So as the engagement happens, the Well Spikes went down, or if you're not going to use a Well Spike, if it's a bad situation, the Necro 1 moves in and uses his Plague. Now, he only stays on the perimeter, he never overcommits, you don't go right in the middle, you're moving around about the melee, you're blinding anybody that the melee's fighting head to head, you're causing poison, you're causing chill, and then you're just moving back out when that's up. That's a 20-second duration, so you should be in there for the full engagement phase, and then you're just back out to throwing in your marks again, assisting the other 2 Necros. The other use for the Necromancer, another spike, is a Death Shroud spike. If the situation arises, there's lots of people really low, you need to finish them off, or the commander's struggling a wee bit and something needs to just tip the balance in your favour, the Necro class leader can assign a Death Shroud spike in 3, 2, 1. All 3 of the Necros will close in, again not into the centre, and you use your Force skill there. So you're using that Force skill, Life Transfer, it's healing up your allies and it's massive damage. You have exposed yourself, so as soon as that's done, possibly use 5 to create some torment, and then you're back out to your safety zone and just throwing in the pressure again. And that's what the Necromancer brings to the engagement phase. So we only have the heal regroup phase to discuss, and then that is you ready for World v World. So we'll move on to that now. Don't worry, we're coming to the end now. This is the final stage in the sequence, which is the heal regroup. So you've been in combat, you've created your kill zone, you've downed a lot of players, hopefully you've finished some, you'll have moved out of the danger zone a wee bit to the next area, created some new damage, maybe got some new people down, hopefully everyone is still up, and it's time for the commander to call a withdraw. So it would be along the lines of we are withdrawing to the golem in the back in 5 seconds, okay, and that gives everyone an indication of what is going to happen. So on that 5 seconds, and he would start to count it, so withdrawing in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and all that stage the sequence begins. So the commander starts to fall back, the warriors will use their charge skill on their Warhorn 4, which cures any crippled, immobilised or chilled that may be on your allies, allowing everybody to get out safely. Your elementalists will have had the 5-second cooldown, so they can use their 3 skill geyser or their healing rain. You want to have maybe 2 to the 3 doing this. They drop them on the spot the commander is going to, which was the golem, which has moved on since then, unfortunately. As your warriors reach the water field, they use their blast for call to arms in the water field, and if absolutely needed, they can switch and waste an Earthshaker to get that second blast per warrior. When your buff support guardian reaches the water field, he uses his blast finisher, Mighty Blow, for the heal effect and switches straight into his staff and uses Empower. Not only is he rebuffing the might, at the end of it, he gives an AoE heal from that with a base of 1500 plus whatever your healing power is to the 5 targets. Your heal support guardian will go straight to Empower on his staff to restack the might on everyone and to get that healing from the end of the cast. And finally, using your Evasive Arcana trait, once you've thrown down your water fields, you can also use your dodge to get another heal blast on the elementalist, just to top that off. And it wouldn't hurt if you threw in your eruption as well, which is a blast finisher, just in case one of the other Ellies is slower than you. You might catch their water field and top everyone up. And that's the heal regroup. You have just fully healed up everyone that it got out within the melee ball. The might is back up to 24. It took you roughly 5-6 seconds to complete that, and the commander is pushing back in 3, 2, 1, and it all starts over. Fortunately, I've been gifted with some recent footage from the guys at 7 to give you an indication just exactly how that looks when everything is pieced together. So that is coming up now, and thanks for watching.